because I'm probably like you, out to an audio interface and then back into the computer, and then my video is a different source. And I feel like whenever you do that, I mean, it looks better, but it also probably confuses these systems often.
It does.
Yeah.
I've learned about audio.
You are listening to the Astrocast.
So, yeah, that's my next hill to climb in the audio world. So welcome back to the show. Nico Carver, obviously, of Nebula Photos. I've said it on the show many a times before. You're my favorite astronomy creator in the YouTube world. And you've grown a lot since you got started. I was looking at your numbers earlier, and like, as far as Astro creators go, man, you're definitely up there, which is amazing. And I guess like one of the things that I want to ask you about, one of the first things I wanted to ask you about, do you find it difficult to balance making beginner friendly videos? Because obviously I feel like with my stuff anyway, I feel like beginner friendly stuff really does good listener wise. Like anytime I put something out like best beginner rig, it tends to get more views and listens, versus challenging yourself with like the more demanding setups and more demanding equipment, like largest telescope I've ever used. You did that one a few weeks ago, which I really enjoyed, by the way. How do you balance those two? Or is it not a problem for you? Do you enjoy both equally?
No, it is a problem. And I think that sometimes even in beginner topics or intermediate topics, what might be most interesting to me personally at where I am in astrophotography is not going to be a general audience kind of vibe. So I definitely think about that a lot. And what I do is I spend a lot of time writing. So I write a script, but then I go through that script and I'm constantly deleting asides and things that I think are just like too advanced, too confusing. So yes, that's something I think about a lot, and it's difficult to find the right balance. You don't want to like just do the same thing over and over again. Like I've been doing Astro YouTube for 6-7 years, so eventually, like, there's always demand for more. Here's just your DSLR and kit lens and that kind of thing. But like eventually I get bored of that kind of video too, because I've done it a bunch of times and there's only so many things I can say. Like my technique hasn't changed. So it's like, I don't like to repeat myself too much. And so that's another challenge, is coming up with new ideas that fit that right balance for the channel, where I think they have a broad appeal and not just like the super, super dedicated astrophotographers who've been doing it forever.
I completely get where you're coming from. I think that's a respectable way to think about it. It never occurred to me how much work probably goes into writing your scripts, because they are, very clearly laid out videos in such a way that it's easy to follow along, and chapters and such. And I bet there is a lot of time that goes into that. I think so many people probably don't realize how much work goes into the scenes to put out, a 30-minute video a couple of times a month, right?
Yeah, and you're trying to hide the effort too, right? So if on YouTube you want to seem very just like conversational, and you just turn down the camera and are just saying whatever pops into your head kind of thing. So I try to write the script that way. But then, yeah, you're right that people don't really get how much time is prep work for me.
Yeah.
Like just thinking about the video, thinking, is this concept right? Does it work? Like, can I explain it clearly? And a lot of times videos take me way longer than I originally planned. So if I'm taking on some kind of product for review, I often feel bad, because sometimes things take I think they're going to take 3 months maybe, and then they take a year.
Yeah.
So so the people who are loaning me the products are often, emailing me like, when's the video coming out? When's the video coming out? I feel bad because I keep saying, oh, it's taking longer than expected, but that's just what happens sometimes. So yeah, with this 3D printed one that I did recently, I tried to make it pretty like accessible and easy to follow, like what's going on in the 3D printed Astro world. But there's a lot that I tried for that video and abandoned and thought about doing. Like I thought about maybe going more into a tutorial about 3D printing rather than just more the overview, but it didn't feel right. So there's a lot of times where I'll even film things and start editing and change my mind and go back.
That was the next thing I wanted to ask you about, was the 3D print video. Cause actually I watched that one last weekend. I think today's Sunday? It was Friday when I watched it, actually, a little bit sooner than that. Anyway, great video, first of all. I love 3D printing. I've actually been dipping my toes in getting one of this kind of new generation tool switching 3D printers that are starting to hit the market. I'm looking at the Snapmaker in particular. That one's really caught my eye, the U1. How much have you seen 3D printing grow in astrophotography over the last couple of years? Because it seems like it's exploding compared to when I went on Thingiverse a couple of years ago and just searched telescope or astrophotography. Now, like you say, you can build an entire harmonic mount if you have the time and dedication to do it, right?
Yes, and there's professional makers like out of China who are doing 3D printed mounts and just selling them by the boatload. I think so. Yeah, it's interesting that it's not just a hobbyist space anymore. Where when I started and it was 3D printing, it made sort of sense in this ATM, amateur telescope maker kind of thing, where it was this is the next evolution. We used to make things out of wood or just whatever we had around, but now it's 3D printing maybe makes more sense to make your telescope parts and different things and mounts, but now it's really advanced to the point where people's designs are good enough that they feel confident selling them, which I think is pretty interesting, because it's also a way to start basically an astrophotography business without much capital investment. Yeah. I mean, otherwise I can't really think of how you would make products for astrophotography. So I think 3D printing is a way that a lot of people are now making some money in the space. There were projects that I had to leave out that or just are planning for a different video, Deep Sky Dad. He has a huge business, just mostly 3D printed gear. So
excellent gear. Yeah. I have his FP2 panel on my SQA55 that I just set up out in Utah recently. And it's funny, when I was talking with quite a few people who were setting up their remote rigs, Deep Sky Dad is really the one you want because of the light sealing capability that it has, which is very important remotely, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I was just out at a remote observatory, and seeing that difference was pretty cool. It's just how he has the magnets, and it's a very tight fit, and so it's I think you really could take darks and stuff basically any time with that one. Well, the other ones you really have to wait for it to get really dark before you start taking darks with a flat panel. Yeah.
Was there anything in particular that you were surprised about with 3D printing, as far as because to me, when I think about, for example, I built some risers for my SQA55 when I was, messing with different configurations for the kit that I was going to be sending to the remote observatory. And I wasn't really comfortable with the specific ones that I made because of the material that I was able to print with. But then I found out later on that you can basically print with carbon fiber alloy, essentially. I mean, I know carbon fiber is an alloy, but you get my point. There are much stronger materials available. Do you think that ultimately opens up a wider array of what's going to be possible down the line?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because I had a section in that video that I recorded about different filaments and stuff and cut it all out because I wasn't confident in what I was saying, because I saw so many different opinions about things online. So, because some people were saying PLA is actually a very strong filament. You just need to use a lot of infill and it's fine. But my personal experience with PLA is I've often had parts warp because of the heat and stuff. So I was going to include something about that, but I was I don't know. I was just finding so many different things. And then, you mentioned the carbon fiber enforced PET G, and it's I think that's great too. I've been printing with it a lot. Noah and our Stellar prints with it. But again, you find people online that are this is unsafe. You shouldn't use it because of the little shards that you can breathe in and things. So there's all kinds of information. And a lot of times that's an issue for me with videos, is like, I'm maybe too cautious about getting things wrong or something. So I just cut things out. But if you do that too much, then the videos just get boring, because then it's like you don't have an opinion anymore. But
I get that. I find myself oftentimes I don't do it as much these days now that I've gotten some actual episode numbers under my belt. But when I would go back and listen to my episode, I always catch myself like, oh, darn, I said that wrong. And usually it's just because like in the heat of the moment, I start, yammering on about something and end up saying latitude instead of longitude. I catch myself doing that all the time, and it'll just be silly stuff. But I can only imagine when you're actually like, putting together a well thought out produced video that you're scripting, you really got to be careful about that kind of stuff, because I'm sure you feel like you have a responsibility to your viewers who've been following you for years at the same time.
Yeah. I do feel that. And I guess, it's weird. You would think that, like you were saying, with more episodes under your belt, you get more used to it. But like, I feel like I somehow get more sensitive to getting things wrong now. It's like, and when I see the comments where I'm like, oh yeah, that person is right, I totally flubbed that, I feel bad about it. But like, because I guess because I'm doing it full time, so I feel like, oh, I should be really good at this point.
I get it.
It's so hard to like get everything right.
You'll never get everything right. It's one of the best things about astronomy and astrophotography is just like there's always something new to learn, right? And I don't think any of us are ever going to get perfection. And if we did, it wouldn't be fun, Yeah,
I mean, I'm 10 years into this, and right now I'm remember that OCal telescope I reviewed like a year ago? I still have that in my observatory, and I'm finally feeling like I sort of understand star collimation with it, like actually doing the collimation, looking at the stars.
Yeah.
The whole review, I don't think I really got it. I was just basically like guessing and just trying things until like, oh, okay, maybe that looks okay. And then I would send the picture to the owner of OCal, and he would be like, yeah, this is acceptable, I guess, or something. But like now I feel like I'm sort of getting like, oh yeah, if I move this screw this way and this screw this way, and I can see exactly how it's changing, and maybe I can start really dialing things in. So even, like for some people, the idea of like collimation, they probably mastered that in like year 2, but for me it's like year 10, and I'm finally getting to really understand.
I get that. I completely understand where you're coming through on that, because I've done nothing but refractors from day one. I mean, my first telescope I ever bought was a reflector, but it was the complete wrong telescope to buy, so it basically sat as a visual only scope. And somebody gifted me a C8 a year ago, 2 years ago now, I think. And here I am at my pier in my, side yard observatory, turning screws and watching, stars change shapes. And I'm over here like, what is going on, man? Yeah. It can be tricky to pick up on some of these things that, again, might be super simple for somebody else that's already done that a million times, but it's all part of the hobby and the growth, right?
For sure. Yeah. And I feel like that one is so difficult because collimation and tilt can have the exact same effect on stars, right? And so for like, but if you try to correct tilt before collimation, it doesn't really ever work, because if you're not perfectly collimated, but then it's so hard to get collimation right if you're very tilted. So I feel like that's like a weird chicken and the egg thing, where I don't know how people get good at this. It seems so difficult.
That is very, very tricky for sure. That actually reminds me of a question I wanted to ask you about. Who does Nico go to when he can't figure something out? Like, do you just go on Reddit like the rest of us? Do you search for YouTube videos? Do you have a club that you bounce things off of? Close friends? Like, where do you go when you have a problem that you just genuinely can't solve?
So I'm a librarian by training. And so I try to like ingest a wide variety of information and then find like the parts that are in agreement. So I probably have, and I'm also a huge Astro book collector. So
Nice.
I probably will first go to a book. Like I have I think it's the Suitor book on collimation. I'd probably try to flip through that and see is there something here I can pull out?
Yep.
Feel like it's a good ground source kind of thing of this is a well-respected book. And then I'll start maybe just Googling. But with Google, of course, a lot of the results are either going to be Reddit or Cloudy Nights. I found that both sources can have just a lot of pretty wild opinions that aren't necessarily correct.
You can say that.
You really do have to just sort of try to sift through it and be what seems correct here?
It seems like it's getting harder to do that too now, with obviously AI search becoming this huge thing where, you used to be able to go search for a topic and you would get, several different, Reddit results. But now it's just here's the answer. And they're gathering probably whatever was most upvoted from Reddit. I don't know how they do that, but it seems like that is having a large, I think AI is having a huge impact on everything in the world, obviously. And I won't get into my feelings about it, but I'd be curious to know, what do you think about how AI is impacting the hobby right now?
So when ChatGPT 3 or whatever it was first came out and people started getting excited about it, I did a quick video just sort of feeding it general astrophotography questions and then evaluating how close would that be to my answer. And I found for general questions, it did a really good job. But now we all know the reason it can do a good job on general questions is because it's very good at summarizing from all of the information that it took from the internet.
Yes.
For very specific questions, I find that it's so hit or miss because depending on the way that you phrase the prompt or whatever, it can give you wildly wrong information or good information. But I don't think that it's any worse necessarily than just searching Reddit or Cloudy Nights for any. Yeah. It seems like it's about as good.
I agree with that.
I do get a lot of people emailing me or messaging me with questions, and they say, this is what ChatGPT or Claude said. And then I read through that, and a lot of times it's wrong. A lot of times it's just it can now look at a picture, right? So I've seen it look at pictures. This was a recent one. Look at pictures of what to me was clearly banding, horizontal or vertical banding, and it called it walking noise. And I'm like, wow. I know that's not correct. I know what walking noise looks like. That's not walking noise. Yeah. So it's interesting that the techniques or the capabilities have gotten more advanced with it, that it can actually look at pictures now, but I haven't seen it really get that much better for me, at least in terms of advice, than when it was originally sort of hit the scene with ChatGPT 3. It was about the same quality to me.
I wonder if it's going to get better at some point, because I feel like it's definitely gotten more is the easiest way that I can say, but I don't know that it's necessarily gotten better. I'll give you one. Apps. Have you noticed this? Everybody has written an astronomy or astrophotography app at this point. I follow a lot of different, pages and Facebook pages and Cloudy Nights and and it seems like everybody has a different app that they're putting out. And yes. It's fun. I get it. People want to go and create something and say, hey, this is mine. But I often wonder, if something goes wrong, I wonder if they feel a responsibility to that at all. And, where's that fine balancing point? And I don't know. I feel like it's definitely taken a hold in astronomy in a way that I didn't expect it to quite so quickly. And maybe that was naive on my part, but.
Yeah, I'm actually fairly surprised too how quickly the app thing happened. I think the AI written apps that I'm more interested in, I guess, are the ones that are the processing add-ons for Serial, the Python scripts and stuff like that. I think that's pretty cool, especially if it's filling some need. A lot of times I get sent an app for weather, Astro weather or something, and I'm I already know of several apps that do this better that are well established. So I don't really understand why you're sending me this or why you even want to do this, other than just maybe just a to see what the AI could do.
It does feel a lot like that. They're just kind of kicking the tires on it to see what it can do. And I'm sure a lot of people, if they, don't have any experience in any coding, and I was never a master coder by any means, but I wrote a little bit of code as I was growing up. Me and you were of similar age. I'm sure we had similar computers when we were kids and everything. And I guess it's got to be amazing to just, type one prompt and then see a whole web app spit out, you know what I mean, with very little effort. So,
I think the other project I got to bring up is Frank with SETI Astro. I mean, I think it's really cool how much he's explained his process for making that. And I'm amazed that he started that project without knowing any coding, because that's crazy to me that in 2 years he's built something that huge.
All the work that he's put into it, and the fact that the standalone SETI suite, it's so great. And I've got personal worries about PixInsight at some point moving to a subscription platform. We go back and forth on this on my Discord all the time. I think they'll probably do it with 3.0, just because why wouldn't they? That seems to be the way the wind's been blowing for the last 10 years. A lot of people counter that with saying they're going to push away all their customers if they do that, because there's other products that are available on the market. And I say, that's wonderful. It's great that things like SETI Astro exist, 100%. But I do genuinely worry about that, because PixInsight has been kind of like the bedrock for so long. But do you see a shift in the future at some point with that, with things like SETI Astro getting so much better month after month?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I guess, here, I don't know how much I want to get into the ethics of AI, but it is something I wonder about, is that how much are the AI written apps somehow taking the work of what's already come out in Astro software and just repackaging it because they've already scraped the internet for all these ideas. So I don't know how much they can push the envelope if they're purely written by AI. But I don't know. It's definitely a wait and see kind of thing.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely be seeing a lot more before there's less, right? Oh, man. So the big thing that I want to talk to you about today, and I ran this by you last night. I was sitting here coming up with questions that I wanted to drop by you, because I always try to, I don't have any gotcha moments on this show. I don't think I've ever thrown a question at somebody where they'd be like, oh my, I don't want to answer that. But I did have genuine concerns that you might be working on something about this particular topic, and I didn't want to step on your toes with it, was the main thing. So that's why I was bouncing it off you like that. But anyway, you took a trip recently. I also took a trip recently. Tell me about where you went and what you did.
So I went to San Pedro de Atacama in Chile, which is in the Southern Hemisphere. San Pedro de Atacama is in the northern part of the Atacama Desert, which is this really famous place for astronomy, especially professional astronomy, because it's very dry. There's high mountains and good seeing. So a lot of the professional telescopes now are being built there, especially the giant telescopes. So I've always been interested in wanting to visit there because of the professional astronomy context. On this trip, I didn't actually see any of the big observatories, but it was still just really amazing to be in this place, because it seems like it's a place that people always talk about when it comes to astronomy, is the Atacama Desert. So it's almost like a pilgrimage for astronomers to try to get there at some point in their life. And I'd been thinking about it for a number of years. I'd been going back and forth between just making it a personal trip that I saved up for, or making it part of my business, and decided that I sort of tried to find a happy medium between that, where it was a workshop, but I tried to make it sort of a relaxed workshop, where it was called an astrophotography trip with Nico, where it wasn't. So it was a little bit more of we're all going to have fun. I'm going to have fun too shooting. It's not going to be I don't set up my own rig. I set up my own rig, took lots of pictures, that kind of thing. but it was very successful. I mean, I really enjoyed doing that, and can of course talk more about it.
Well, I'm curious, how many people did you take on the trip? Because I bet that was a pretty tough decision to come to as far as how many, because obviously you want to have like an intimate setting when you're on a trip like that. But at the same time, it has to make sense. You got to bring enough people for it to be a part of the business, right? So was that a tough decision for you to make?
Not really. I knew I was planning because I'd done deep sky workshops before.
Okay.
Always with co-instructors, but I found from that that the ratio of 5 participants to 1 instructor is the right ratio. This is the first time I did a solo, and so I did bump it up to 6 participants, and so it was either going to be 5 or 6. I decided on 6, and 6 was fine. Now, it could have been that like I wasn't in control of who signed up, right? Like, so it could have been that like 4 people that signed up were like brand new and like really needed a lot of attention or something, and it would have been very difficult. That's not what happened at all. All 6 had like done astrophotography before, brought good gear, everything worked really, really well. But like, yeah, you never know with a workshop because anyone can sign up, including people who are brand new. And a lot of time people who are brand new want to do an in-person workshop because it makes sense to them. It's like, okay, this is very overwhelming to understand it all by myself. So I'm going to do an in-person workshop where I have an instructor there to show me how everything works. The only issue with that, I think, is that for like a Milky Way workshop, that's perfect because it's like camera, lens, tripod, maybe intervalometer. There's not too much to go over.
Yeah.
Deep sky, it's a lot to go over if you're brand new to deep sky in 4 days or 4 nights or whatever. So this one, I think everything worked out. 6 people was fine for just me. But I can imagine if anyone's thinking of doing deep sky workshops, you have to think about like how much do you sort of set people up to say like, like you should actually have some experience to go on this workshop kind of thing, or evaluating what gear they're going to bring. All these kinds of things definitely come up and can be important to making the workshop run smoothly, because you also don't, if there are like people who are brand new, you don't want to give all your time to them and just like ignore people who are more intermediate or advanced who also want to come on this workshop. So
and learn something. That's true.
Yeah.
Now, when you traveled, I was looking up the gear that you used. Sorry if I was creeping on you a little bit there, but you brought one setup in particular that you took a incredible photo with. I mean, both of the 2 of the photos that I've seen that you took on the trip are both absolutely jaw-dropping, to be clear. But the one in particular, it's funny because I have like a very similar setup that I shot with when I was in Utah in May. So you did, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but I think you did a move, shoot, move with a Canon RA and an RF85 1.2. Is that right?
that's right. Yep.
What was it that made you choose that gear over any other star tracker camera combination, or even a deep sky camera for that matter, like a ZWO cooled camera?
So it's funny, that combo I wasn't actually even planning to use in that way.
Really?
What happened was, so I had a combo instead. There was an AM3N, an SQA55 with an ASI 6200, my other setup. And then I had the RF85 and the Canon RA riding on top. And my plan was for every object that I shot with the SQA55 at 264 millimeter focal length to also shoot it at 85. So that was the plan. And for some objects, it actually worked really well. Like the object that it worked well for was running chicken, because it basically like the 264 framed up the running chicken in close up. And then the 85 got like running chicken, Southern Cross, Carina, all in one shot. So for some objects, it worked really well. But the reason that I took the 85 off of the top of that and put it on the move, shoot, move was I realized I was just like running out of time with the objects I wanted to shoot. And I didn't actually, and I did the Vela Supernova Remnant at 85 the first night and looked at the results and was like, I don't like this shot.
Yeah.
So I decided, okay, the Large Magellanic Cloud is only up for like 90 minutes at the beginning of the night.
Really?
So I'm going to get that on the Move Shoot Move with the 85 and let my telescope keep doing Vela. And so that's why I split them up. The reason I had the Move Shoot Move in the first place was twofold. One, it was a small enough mount that I could bring that if anyone was having like terrible equipment problems, I could give them the Move Shoot Move and they could still get something. And then two, I can talk more about this later, but we planned a Milky Way night where we went out into the desert. And so I wanted it for that, to do some tracked Milky Way.
Yes. I've found over the last couple of years, and I've had a few star trackers at this point, but for me personally, like I love my Move Shoot Move. Like I was kind of shocked at how much I love wide field stuff. I'm a sucker for it. I'll throw a 50 millimeter, 85 millimeter lens on and just have a field day with that. And something I've noticed now that I've been traveling a little bit more for astronomy and astrophotography, being able to pack down gear into a safe way, like a AM3 and SQA85, like what kind of container did you use for that on your flight? And did you take it as carry-on? I would imagine you did, but maybe you didn't.
So no, the mount wasn't carry-on. It was in my checked, but so basically the mount and tripod, it was in the original packaging, that foam case for the AM3N. And then it was just in a checked bag with clothes around it, kind of thing. I think I found from traveling that mount heads, if you keep them like in their original packaging, all that kind of stuff, you can throw them in a checked bag and they're fine. What I bring carry on is all the cameras and optics, because I'm just more paranoid about like something weird happening and like a glass element getting loose or something, and that would just be bad. So I'm more careful with any kind of telescope or anything like that. But the mounts and tripods I usually put in my checked bag just to, because it's hard to get something as big as a mount and a camera and a telescope all in your carry-on. I think you might be able to do it with the right combo, but it's difficult for sure.
Tripod in particular. I saw that whenever I traveled, I brought the ZWO carbon fiber, the TC30, I believe. It wasn't fitting in my carry-on no matter what. I had to put it in a checked bag because the ring's so big at the top, it just doesn't fold down like that. So,
and I think some people worry with checked, maybe rightly, that like, well, they could lose your bag, and then you go on this trip and you don't have your equipment. My feeling is that things have gotten better over the years, like to the point because like now, even with a lot of the airlines, if you have the app, it like sends you a notice of like your bag is on the plane kind of thing, which gives you a nice assurance. I think it's probably with a trip like this, with a deep sky workshop, I think everyone had something in checked bags.
Okay, so
some people more than others. Someone brought an SQA 106 in a checked bag, but it was like a big Pelican case kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
So would you say then overall you feel pretty comfortable checking stuff now for international flights for dark sky trips? Mount heads, obviously, we won't talk about glass specifically, but like, did you bring your Move Shoot Move in your carry-on?
Yes, I did bring the Move Shoot Move in the carry-on. I guess, I guess maybe the way I see it is, it's always nice to think of like the backup solution if the worst happens.
Yeah.
So like I was mentioning earlier, like the Move Shoot Move, it was really nice knowing that was so small that I could just have it with me all the time, have it in carry-on, because if everything, didn't go right, I could still use the Move Shoot Move, my Canon RA and 85, and get shots like the Large Magellanic Cloud, lots of stuff with that setup.
Absolutely.
Another thing I wanted to say about that setup was something that I was unsure about it with going on the trip was like, I've always done the laser polar alignment with it here in the Northern Hemisphere. That of course doesn't work in the Southern Hemisphere because there's nothing to point at. There's nothing there in that part of the sky. So another YouTuber, Richard Taddy, I think his channel's called Nightscape Images. He showed how with like any kind of planetarium app where you can turn on the equatorial grid, you can basically find a way to mount that very securely to the Move Shoot Move and just point it at the Southern Hemisphere just with your phone.
Yep.
And I wasn't sure if that was really going to work at 85 millimeters, but it did. It was like every night I did it, I could do 30-second subs. They looked perfect. No trailing at all. So
I love that. And I saw that video. I thought that was brilliant. In fact, I don't remember if it was him specifically, but I saw somebody do that similar method, and they actually pointed the phone through the Earth essentially, and we're lining up Polaris, because if you think about it, it's the same axis, right? So it should work. So that's really cool. So, all right. So I don't know did you image on night one when you arrived, or did you guys were you exhausted? Like, what time did you arrive into Chile when you got there?
So originally I planned it just as a 4-night workshop. And then people were telling me basically like, given the expense of this, we'd like it to be longer, which I understood, but I didn't want to charge too much, like for my instruction, if it was going to be like a 7-day workshop or something like that. So what I ended up doing was you could do extra nights ahead. And so most of the group bought those extra nights. And so, yeah, a lot of us were imaging the first sort of pre-night that we got there. I think including the pre-nights, it was like 6 nights and only one was a cloud out. The rest nice. were almost perfectly clear, or like 90
very close
clear kind of thing. Yeah.
Did you see a black cloud while you were out there?
A black cloud?
I mean, like the stars just disappear because.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. They're not illuminated so much by anything. Yeah. Cause it is really very dark. There's also there's a huge cloud, that just sort of like sat for 20 hours or something. And I've never seen something like that up here, where it's just like something about the weather patterns or something down there where it was just like a cloud could just like sit and not move.
What part of the sky was it in? Just out of curiosity.
It was in the western sky, and it was just this giant, huge cloud. But then like the one night, like almost the whole sky was clear except for that west. And then you saw this giant cloud over there.
That's crazy. Any light domes down there?
Yeah, so that was another thing I was worried about, because I didn't do like any kind of scouting trip for this. I couldn't afford it. So I basically just did a lot of research, and I wanted it to be pretty comfortable in the sense that like people could leave their gear out and sleep in their hotel room and not have to worry about it. So we were in this kind of like resort with a walled-in resort with a gate and everything. So like the security was good. And it had this small area dedicated for like night sky viewing.
Cool.
But not having been there, I had to like try to like communicate like through a tour company to the hotel. Like, is this going to work? Is it like, how bad is the light pollution from the hotel, from the city, San Pedro de Atacama? Like, and I looked at a lot of light pollution maps, and I basically gambled and thought this is going to work, and it did. And what gave me a good feeling about it was like everyone wanted to, of course, image to the south, because we're in the southern hemisphere. All of the objects that we're all interested in getting, like Carina and all these things, are going to be to the south. To the north, it's stuff that we, as people coming from the northern hemisphere, can already shoot. Like, and this resort, this hotel resort, was to the south of San Pedro de Atacama. So there was a light dome if you look to the north, but it was all the stuff we weren't interested in. And to the south, it was Portal 1. It was just like perfect. So that all worked out really well. I would definitely go back to this place. I mentioned earlier, it was just like me and 6 people. And that ended up being perfect too for the size of their like night sky viewing area, because we could all set up in a row. Okay. But there was just enough space to do that. For like, because that's another thing I think sometimes people don't think about with these workshops is if you have to do 2 rows because you don't have enough space, you're going to get a lot more complaints about red light getting in people's scopes, because people need the red light in order to like, do stuff with their equipment. But then it's very hard not to just like accidentally turn your head and get red light in other people's scopes. So it's much easier if you can get everyone's telescopes in one row. So then we're all working behind our scopes.
That makes sense. So what was it like on night 1 then, when you're finally out there and everybody's got their gear set up? Is it a feeling of relief? Are you nervous? Do you have like some kind of feeling of responsibility over the whole thing? Like, That you had to have some nerves that night, right?
Yeah, I think my main sense of nerves is the idea that people are going to bring all this complicated equipment down there, and then someone's equipment is just going to not work, just be completely broken. And because that happens, and it's happened for me on Deep Sky workshops where the first night I'm working with someone and they don't get any images because there's just too much wrong.
Yep.
On this workshop, that didn't happen.
That's awesome.
Part of it, and I'm not trying to just be like a ZWO fanboy, but everyone brought ASI Airs and AM series mounts, and it just makes it so much easier. It's not just about the reliability of the ASI Air and AM series mounts. It's also that, like, if everyone's using the same thing, they can talk to their neighbor who has like a little bit more experience, and they know, like, I don't have to be the only like source of authority that's going to everyone and trying to give them tips, because people can just talk to each other. And if they have similar gear, it's so much easier. I
couldn't agree more. We were talking about this, when we went on our last dark sky trip, and like somebody had said to me, like, "Hey, Roo, would you ever consider bringing like a mini PC with Nina?" And I'm like, absolutely not. Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I love my Nina computer at the observatory that's set up and automatically running night after night. I love it, but I would not wish that on anyone on a trip, because things get exponentially more complicated when you're in an unfamiliar place. And I don't know why it is, but things go wrong, right? And we have to be ready to deal with those things, especially if it's, an expensive trip to another country. I mean, did you have anything go wrong? Like, all the nights that you were there, did you run into any sort of like bugs or problems or anything outside of just darn, my flats aren't coming out good?
Yeah, we had a few issues with autofocusers or things, like people's autofocusers acting up or not working right, that kind of thing. Another thing that happened that first night was I visually saw the Large Magellanic Cloud, and there was nothing that could prepare me for that, because I've seen galaxies naked eye before, of course, like Andromeda and Triangulum up here, but they're like the size of your finger, maybe. Like, that's how they look, in the sky, because you're basically just seeing that bright core. Here, Bortle 1, the Large Magellanic Cloud, even though it's only 25 degrees up from the horizon, you can see the whole like extent of it. And it's like bigger than your fist in the sky. So when I first started pointing it out to people, they're like, "Oh, that must be a cloud." But I'm like, no, it is a cloud, but it's a galaxy cloud. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Wow.
So that was really, really cool.
Breathtaking part of it all, would you say?
I would say so. Yeah. Visually, that was my favorite thing, even more than seeing the Milky Way upside down and straight up. Seeing the LMC Naked-Eye, I think, was my favorite thing that you could only get by actually going to the Southern Hemisphere, because I think like another debate people probably are going to have, especially increasingly, is a trip to the Southern Hemisphere might be even more than 1 year's rent at a Southern Hemisphere observatory. So weighing those things is sort of crazy.
Wow. I didn't ever think about it like that. That's a very good point, though. And especially as we see more and more amateur friendly places in the coming years, they're going to start opening up. I mean, I know there's already talk about the Starfront Observatory down south. Heck, I've even talked to Astropeak about it. They're considering something in the future. So that's coming. And I guess, but I think, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, there's something to be said for seeing these skies with your own eyes. Is there not?
Yes. And I mean, for me, like I think that all my like early experiences with astrophotography were about being under a really beautiful night sky and seeing something. It wasn't so much about the pictures. It was like seeing the aurora in Iceland, going to Death Valley and getting that experience of like being in the dome of stars, and it's like enveloping you in starlight. So I think, all my like favorite memories of astrophotography are firsthand experience, which you don't get as much with remote. I'm not trying to like, say remote isn't cool. I think it definitely is a cool option. It adds to the hobby, I think, in interesting ways, but I don't think it can replace the excitement of being under a dark sky with other people and experiencing that.
God, I couldn't agree more. You know, I just couldn't agree more with you on that. And now I've got, I guess for about a month and a half now, I've had my rig up and running at a remote observatory, and I've got it all automated with target sequencer and advanced sequencer and target scheduler, to where I can basically just drop whatever targets I want in and it'll go get them for me, you know? And I love that, because like there are times here where I'm like, man, I really wish I could be capturing ROO, but you know, I got to work and this and that and the third. And it's awesome that I have that to fall back on, but I'm always looking forward to that next dark sky trip. There's just something really special about being with like-minded individuals in a place like that. Are you already thinking about going back? Because that was like the first thing that occurred to me when I got back from Utah. I was like, man, I cannot wait to get back to dark skies like that. It really gets you thinking about life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely probably going to just do a repeat basically of the exact same trip. And I was talking to the 6 people that came. A number of them were basically interested in just doing it again next to the exact same trip, which I guess in the moment sort of surprised me, but like the more that I think about it, I'm like, yeah, I would want to do it again. Why wouldn't the other people on the trip want to do it again? So
especially if you got a good group, that makes a big difference, right?
Yeah.
Did you have nerves
that makes it easy for me in a way, but it also is, you know, there's a lot of people that maybe would want to do this. And so I start thinking, well, should I offer it multiple times a year? Should I do back to back kind of thing? So a lot of things to think about there, but yeah, I definitely, am enjoying in-person workshops more and more, and think that it's going to probably be a big part of what I do, you know, every year now.
That makes sense.
I also did one with Capture the Atlas in January in Joshua Tree. I'm going to do that one again next year. So I think I'm going to start doing the ones I like yearly, basically, and then I'll keep adding until I feel like this is enough, and then I'll just do maybe, I don't know, 3 a year or something.
I love that, because you have always struck me as like a teacher at heart. Like I get the feeling that if you weren't doing this, you would probably be a professor at a college somewhere. And I say that with the utmost love and respect for you. So I get a feeling that that's just a natural extension from what you're already doing, because you've been teaching people like me for years now. So to be able to extend that to in-person meetings, it's got to give a lot more meaning to you as well, I would imagine.
Yeah. And before I did this, I wasn't exactly a professor. I was a teaching librarian at a university. So I was teaching college students every day, like multimedia stuff. And then I did have some courses that were full courses that I taught to. Yeah. So yeah, teaching was a big part of my background. It's funny though, like when you do it every day, you definitely, it becomes something that's easier. And so now when I do these workshops, I do feel sort of out of practice, you know, when I get up there for like the processing teaching part of it. And I'm like, oh, I haven't done this in months, like being up in front of people, teaching them something. And it's difficult these days. Like earlier, you mentioned all the AI apps, like it's difficult these days with so many tools that people have access to. And they're telling me about scripts and things that I've never heard of.
Right.
And so it's like, I'll show them, you know, something. It'll be like, oh, this is a narrowband to broadband star script or something. And they'll be like, oh no, there's a much better one now. And they show me it and that kind of thing. And it's like, so I think that in the future, I might try to make those sessions more like student led than I have in the past, where it's like, because I think that students actually get a whole lot out of teaching themselves. Like it really helps them learn to like get up there and sort of teach something to other people themselves. So this past workshop, I was sort of up there for 3 hours every day. But I think in the future, I'm going to try to incorporate more of like, everyone has knowledge here. Let's try to like just share knowledge in these sessions.
I think that's smart. And one thing I've noticed that I'm sure you probably have seen too over the years is like sometimes just getting a different set of eyes on a problem, even if it's someone who's brand new to the hobby, sometimes they have the most insightful things to point out, you know?
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah. When you were saying earlier about like, where do I go for when I'm having problems? I think another thing I forgot to mention is like, I'm in like a lot of like group chats now and things where it's just like, over the years, if you stay in astrophotography, you just meet a lot of people. So you can start to remember like, oh, who might know the answer to this thing? Like they're a big reflector guy or something, and they can ask them.
That's been like a huge thing that I have come to appreciate over the last year. I can tell you, getting into my late 30s, I'll just say it, I was a lonely guy. Like I was happily married. I have a good career. But my friends got further and further away the older we got with our own lives obligations. No fault of their own. I don't blame them for that or anything. But you find like it gets harder and harder to like make friends and real connections. And then when you get into something like astronomy, like initially you might think, man, I'm isolating myself even more because so many people will start by themselves, out in the field taking pictures, but it's kind of blown my mind how many new people I have met over the last few years since I started the show and started talking to more people and visiting clubs and going on trips. And not only do like you make connections with people, you make some like real genuine friends. And one of the best things to me is that like you have a real true common passion for something. And like, where else do you get that, man? Like there aren't too many hobbies out there where people connect like they do in astronomy. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different ways to have that kind of like social connection. Like, every astronomy club I've been a part of has had a completely like different like vibe. Like some are way more like science kind of nerdy based. Some are more the practical. Some are all about like, let's get out there and actually like do it. Let's have tons of outreach events kind of thing. So it's like, I just feel like there's so many different ways that you can actually have fun with it in person with other people. And I do think that the remote stuff, it's like, I think my worry is that like, and this is maybe like an old guy kind of worry, is that like, you see like the astronomy clubs are like all of like the older folks, and the remote stuff seems to be like all the young professional folks. And it's like, that's really the divide right now.
Yep. You're not wrong.
Some of it comes back together with like summer star parties, I think, but it really depends on the star party. I don't know. I think that like there's all kinds of ways to have fun with it, and it'd be another fun thing would be like to find a way to like bring together all the remote people in person at certain times. That kind of thing. Like, I feel like there's such a strong community on those Discords and things that like, yeah, if you could organize like real in-person events off of that, it'd be fun.
That's one thing I'm doing. I'm very excited about. So I think I announced it in my Discord a couple weeks ago. So we went to Utah. Actually, and the reason we went, me and my buddy Parrish, we drove literally all the way across the country, like from Charlotte to Utah. And the reason we drove is because we were bringing our telescopes to set up, and we didn't want to mail them out. We wanted to drop them off in person. We wanted to spend time under those dark skies. And so like the first night we got there after driving for 3 days, mind you, we set up at the remote observatory, which was incredible. And we got to, hang out with the people who are running it, and they're good friends of mine, Nathan and Mike. But then after that, we drove the next day to like the most remote place that we could find in Utah, and we found it. But after spending 3 nights there, like me and Parrish talked about it, and like we were like, this is the place. So we decided to invite everybody, all the listeners and everything. Heck, you're invited if you're available. And we're going to spend a week there next year. And you don't have to stay the whole week. Some people I'm sure will stay a couple of nights and come and go. But I hope that that's a way that, like you say, we can bring the group together for like once a year or even every other year, but like a real big community meetup where people get to, because it blows my mind. Like we got people in Europe. I'm sure it's probably even more like in your Discord, Patreon, group membership, you got people all over the world, and like they do build real friendships. So I think it's important to give them the opportunity to get together,
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that makes total sense to do it like in remote Utah. Another challenge I've had, which I'm sure you've had too on the East Coast, is like thinking about doing in-person events where it's like a star party, where it's like about like dark skies, night skies kind of thing. On the East Coast, that's so hard to plan because it's like you're thinking like, okay, am I going to have like a billion rain dates here? Kind of
right.
Yeah.
I've been so lucky, like on most of my dark sky trips. I've yet to have, knock on wood, a like total rain out situation where we're just clouded out every night. But I've certainly had like less than stellar trips. But yeah, man, on the East Coast, it's always roll of the dice, isn't it?
Yep. And so I do, for my Patreon, I do an in-person meetup every year. But it's not a star party. It's just, I do it at NEAF because it's like, I'm like, okay, if people are coming to NEAF anyways, I'll do a Patreon meetup kind of thing. And that's always worked pretty well. So
that's very, very cool. I like that. It was cool getting to see you at NEAF. One of the things,
for sure,
I mentioned it on my show after I got back, by the way, you kind of blew me away, man. Like we had never met in person before. Obviously we had done the prior interview, but like the second you saw me, you were like, "What's up, Roo?" And I was like, wow, that kind of blew my mind, man. You've got a good way of remembering faces, I suppose. I thought that was really cool, man. That really touched me that you remembered that because I didn't expect you to remember me.
I'm glad I did. I don't think I have a special ability with faces. I think I actually am pretty good with faces. I often forget names, but your name is so easy because it's like it's pretty unusual. Easy, yeah. So, but like if someone comes up to me and I sort of recognize them, but their name is like Chris or David or Bob or something, there's no way I'm going to pull it.
I'm totally with you on that, man. That's the exact same for me. I want to ask you about this photo. So, when I initially emailed you to talk about coming back on the show, and if you wanted to talk a little bit, you'd sent me a link to your Astrobin, and there's actually two photos I want to ask you about. But let's start with Gamma Velorum, man. It won an image of the day on Astrobin. Congratulations, by the way. And it's just breathtaking. Can you kind of like walk me through your process? Like, what made you pick this target? Did you show everybody how you processed it? Was that part of the workshop? Like, take me through the process of getting this image, because man, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, so I knew that I wanted to do something with the Vela Supernova Remnant because I love supernova remnants. Like my favorite nebula forever has been the Spaghetti Nebula, which is like one of the biggest supernova remnants in the northern hemisphere skies. I first shot that in 2017 with a Canon 200 millimeter lens and an Astro camera. And that was like, often my latest picture is my favorite picture. Yeah, but sometimes you just have this picture where you're like, it just is a huge level up and you're just like, this is just so amazing. I love this. And that was definitely one of those where I was just like, now I see what I'm going to be really into is these like giant supernova remnants. So I thought about, with Vela trying to do a mosaic and get the whole thing. I decided with limited nights, that wasn't going to work. It's huge. It's like 5 times bigger than the Spaghetti, I think, or something like that. It's so big. So even with a SQA 55, which is 264 millimeter focal length and a full frame camera, that picture, the Gamma Velorum portion is like a tiny bit of the Vela Supernova Remnant. It's just this one little edge of it. But how did I come across that? So it must have just been on Astrobin. I saw other people shooting that part of it. And just as soon as I saw that strand, I was like, that is such a cool looking nebula. Like it's very dramatic. And then what I love about it is the bright blue star next to it. I love pictures where you get a big dramatic nebula, but then also a bright star, because it's 2 anchor points. There's more you can do with composition that way. I think that one also has like a open cluster that's sort of nice. So there's a lot going on in that scene. But I've more and more learned that, yeah, I'm always drawn to these busy scenes, a lot going on. The skill in like composition and processing is to take a busy scene and still make it feel simple enough, make it feel dramatic enough that it's visually striking. And I think that scene lent itself to that, but definitely did some things in processing to help as well.
Integration is gorgeous on it, might I just say.
Thank you.
So clusters.
I'll tell you a little bit about the capture. So I brought down, in addition to the SQA55, I brought down two Astro cameras, the 6200 mm and the 6200 MC.
Nice.
And so what I did was, for that one and for a lot of the pictures I took down there, I did one night with the 6200 MC to get colorful stars, a little bit of dust and stuff that you can only get with broadband. And then the other nights I devoted to the 6200 mm. Because I didn't want to bring a filter wheel, just because of the complexity of that, I brought a filter drawer.
Smart.
And so I just used HA and O3 filters with a mono camera, which I think still gives you like a nice, more contrasty kind of signal than doing the dual band. But I just used the filter drawer to do it. And then so each night that I did the narrow band on that target, I just split it equally between the HA and O3 over however many nights I was able to gather, I think something like 20 hours or something, which was enough to make a good image. Yeah.
And those kind of skies. Absolutely. So did you do it like half and half? Like if you had to break it down, was it like half one shot color and half mono?
I think it was a bit more mono on that one, because with a supernova remnant, it was actually pretty bright, but it wasn't. I definitely knew that like the narrowband was going to be the major feature on that one. With other ones, so I also shot something like, like the Corona Australis Anteater Nebula, and that one I just did one shot color. I considered like, should I shoot some HA too? Because I think there's probably some like little Herbig Haro objects and things in here, but I ended up not. So yeah, it was always just, I didn't make like a super, super detailed plan. I knew the objects that I wanted to shoot. But then what I also like doing is basically, start shooting them every night, following a rough plan, then look at the data and sort of get an idea of like, how much do I think this needs? Can I go and then have some backup objects. So I'm like, if this is going really, really well, and I feel like it's fine, just not devoting all the nights to it, maybe I could bring in a new object or something like that. Some people on the trip, were more like, I'm just going to do two objects the whole trip and just really devote myself, like one early night object, one late night object. Every night I'm going to do those two objects and get as much time as possible. Other people were more like surveyors and they wanted to get lots of stuff. Like they got like 10 or 12 objects or something like that. So I was sort of in between. I think I did maybe like 4 or 5 objects.
That's probably where I would fall to, because I have become aware that I've become very aware in the last year or two that like more integration time does really make a big difference. However, when you're in skies like that, I mean, we've compared, like me and Parrish I was speaking about earlier, when we went to a Portal 1 site and compared like 1 5-minute sub with his like entire integration and like the noise level. It's kind of mind blowing how much of a difference having skies like that makes. So I think that you're probably in a good spot going for, 5 or 6 targets. So, can I ask you about your LMC photo?
Yeah, sure.
So to me, like this is, if I was able to take this trip, like this is the photo I'd want to get. And you said something earlier that it was only up for about 90 minutes per night that you could image it. Did I hear that right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you?
Maybe even less. I mean, 90 minutes if you started shooting before astronomical darkness. Like if you started shooting like a little bit in the twilighty kind of, you know what I mean? Like not fully dark. Probably only like 60 minutes or 50 minutes if you actually waited to Astro Dark to start. And so there's always trade-offs with like what time you go down to the Southern Hemisphere. And I'd say that like this wasn't necessarily the best time for the Magellanic Clouds, but yeah, you could still get the large one at least.
I see that. And you used RF 85 1.2 for this shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I've shot with many RF lenses. Do you find shooting with and I know you're somebody who shot with DSLRs and mirrorless cameras for a long time. Have you found that you have a real preference for a cooled astronomy camera, or do you still appreciate something like a Canon RA just as much in its own right?
So if I were to rank my shots, I would say, yeah, the Gamma Velorum we just talked about was my favorite. That was with cooled astronomy cameras. But then my next two were with the Canon RA.
Yeah,
so the LMC and this wide one of Cross-to-Carina.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those, I was like really excited about those shots. And I knew that like the way to do them was going to be with that 85 millimeter lens. Now I know like with certain 85 millimeter lenses, you could hook them up to an astronomy camera. Like in just that last video, I talked about NR Stellar and the 3D printed rings and all that. So I could have gone that way. You can't do that with RF lenses because RF lenses are mostly focused by wire. So they only are going to work if you connect them to a Canon R camera.
Yeah.
So I've been on the fence about like, do I use that 85 1.2 enough for its cost? Because it's like a $2,500 lens, I think, when I bought it. This is crazy. But I'm so glad I had it for this trip because it really worked well for those two images. And so I think it is sort of like a weird lens to have because I only use it for astrophotography and not that often.
Yeah.
But when I use it, I'm always really like, oh, I'm glad I have this. It's really nice to be able to like stop down to F2 and it's like, that's like well stopped down, you know, so that the stars are pretty good. Like,
yeah, it's gorgeous, man. I love that shot. Like that if I could take a shot while I was down there, that would be it. So with the Magellanic Cloud, you said that it was just breathtaking when you saw it for the first time. Was there anything else in particular in the southern skies that really kind of like just took your breath away or made you take stock and be like, wow, this is worth the trip seeing this?
Yeah, I'd say that I went back and forth on doing like a Milky Way excursion outside of like you could see the Milky Way pretty well, you know, from the hotel, but there was some lights on, you know, like along the path for the hotel that do hit your night adaptation. So basically for deep sky imaging, the hotel was perfect. There was no problem with like how dark the skies were or anything like that. But because our eyes are very different, you really want to be somewhere like super dark for like getting the full glory of the Milky Way. So we did do this like Milky Way excursion where we set up all our deep sky rigs, got them going, and then took a van out to the desert. And that was really, really worth it. I don't think even so much for me for like taking images. It was just to see it, you know, really, really dark, no light pollution, and see the Milky Way rise and get pretty high in the sky. I've definitely, you know, been to other Bortle 1 sites where you can really make out all the dark streamers and stuff. But because the Milky Way is upside down, and you know that those dark streamers that go from the main band of the Milky Way to Rho Ophiuchi.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So those from the southern hemisphere, I've never seen them that pronounced. You know, just like you could really, really see like,
that's so
cool. I can imagine the photo and then I'm looking at it and I'm like, I can see it in the night sky. And
so how high up is Rho, like from your eye line when you're looking at it down there?
It late in the night, it got to the zenith.
Wow. Zenith. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's insane because I'm picturing because so to give you some context, we were in Utah at about 7,000 feet, which I know is not as high as Chile, but it was still very high for me. There were like 0 light domes at all in this place that we were in because we were in these canyons. And like, I was just like, I was taken aback because I've seen like Bortle 1 on the East Coast, but like it was night and day compared to out west. So I can only imagine like would you say it's like a whole nother level compared to what you've seen in the Northern Hemisphere? And I don't know if darkness is the right term to use there, but just like in terms of experience, because like seeing Rho at the zenith, for example.
Yes. To give you an example, like I've been to the Playa, the racetrack Playa in Death Valley, and that's definitely Bortle 1. I've been there when it's no moon, Milky Way's up. After enough time there, I could see like my hand fully extended out. In Chile, when we went out to the desert, I could not see my hand.
Yeah.
Like this far out. It was darker than I've ever experienced. Like it was so dark. And I wasn't really prepared with the group for that, because we got out there and it was like, even with our red headlamps or whatever, it was like we couldn't really see where we were setting up. Like I was just thinking like, okay, I'd planned where we're going and like we'll be able to just like sort of figure out the compositions of the landscape at night. No. It was just guessing because like, and just seeing what pops up on your camera, because you can't see anything even with the red headlamps. So
Jeez.
I think it almost felt like the Milky Way itself was like a little blinding, like so that you couldn't see anything in front of you. That
like, makes sense. I get it. It's like when you hear about the Milky Way casting a shadow, right? Mm-hmm. That's nuts though, man. Oh man. Now I've heard people say that you can like make out certain very large nebula faintly with naked eye from the Southern Hemisphere. Is that true? Were you able to see anything like, I don't know, North American nebula, maybe something really big? Did anything like stand out to you other than the LMC, I guess is a fair way to put it?
So I've always been able to see the lagoon naked eye from any dark sky site. But what you're actually seeing, I think, is the cluster.
Yeah.
You're not really seeing the nebulosity. But basically, I can scan the Milky Way and immediately be like, oh, there's the lagoon.
Yes.
Because it really stands out. But I think it's really the cluster. And I think that there's other nebula like that where, yeah, there's an embedded open cluster. And so I know where that nebula is. And then I see like there's a bright patch there, but probably what I'm seeing is the stars.
That makes sense. Yeah. That absolutely makes sense. So when you got to the area for the Milky Way trip, was it already dark when you arrived, or did you leave early enough to have some twilight? Like, what was that like? That must have been something else.
No, yeah, it was dark because of how we wanted to do it. Because we wanted to start our deep sky rigs, and for that you need to basically wait to polar align. Then polar alignment's going to take a little bit. You have to get to target, and so by the time we were even leaving the hotel, it was already basically dark. And by the time we got to the site, it was fully dark. This time of year, that didn't make too much of a difference in terms of the Milky Way, because the Milky Way was like rise, like basically it was still fairly low. Like the core part was still fairly low when we got there. So then we still had like an hour with the core rising.
Nice.
But if I was doing more of like a Milky Way workshop down there, I would definitely want to like have people like set up their cameras and get like the composition they want while they can still see, because the way we did it, it only made sense because we were like, it was mostly a deep sky workshop.
Well, that's tricky too, because like, could you see yourself doing a Milky Way only workshop in the Southern Hemisphere? Or do you feel like you would almost be wasting the opportunity to get these deep sky objects down south?
I wouldn't personally. I wouldn't do it because I'm such a deep sky person. But like, there's a lot of Milky Way workshops down there.
Yeah, that makes sense
for people that are more into it. And I think it makes total sense to do a Milky Way workshop down there. There's no better place.
Yeah,
you can get really cool like sort of desert landscapes, but they often have interesting rocks and things that make them a little like alien looking.
Yep.
And then just the Milky Way band is, you can get it so many different ways down there. You can get the full arch, do the pano, but then it's going to be the pano, but then like I said, the row of Fiuchi is not going to be down, it's going to be up, and then you can get it where the core is right at the zenith. And so there's so many different ways to get the Milky Way down there that you couldn't do up here. And that is an area also where I feel like the only way you could get those shots is by actually traveling there with your camera. There's no really like remote observatories specializing in nightscape kind of
Nope,
thing.
There probably won't be either. Not truly. So I guess like thinking back on the trip as a whole, is there anything that you will do differently next time when you go down?
So yeah, I worked with a tour company. We did daytime excursions. So that meant that often we were getting up at like 7 a.m., doing an excursion till 1 p.m., having lunch. Then I do the processing workshop. Then we set up for the night. Then we shoot. And it's a lot. It worked fine for me. I did have some people, though, like sign up for the daytime excursions and then bail on them because they were just too tired. So I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to handle that. I feel like it's nice to have those as an option because you're down there. It's cool to see the flamingos, see other things during the day. But maybe I'll just try to like pick ones that are a little shorter, maybe not do them every day, but just some of the days.
Did you get to see flamingos?
Yep.
Oh, I love that. That is so cool. I'm a big birder. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, yeah. Cool. I saw a lot of cool wildlife. There's also down there, there's like the wild versions of alpacas. So like vicuñas, which are really cool looking animals, Wow. And there's a bunch of different species of flamingo that are only down there, basically. Well, they migrate actually, but like, they're known as like the Chilean flamingo, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Wow. That is very cool. So like out of all the excursions that you did then, what would you say was your favorite?
Actually not the one that was more like about flamingos or something, but on this one, we did see flamingos and vicuñas. It was to a place called Rainbow Valley. And it was just, it was, like painted rocks that you often get in the desert where they're not actually painted, but like they are all these beautiful colors. Mm-hmm. And it was just a really nice hike that everyone really, really enjoyed.
That's nice. That is so nice. And, I guess briefly, but like it didn't occur to me that like when you're leading this workshop that you probably have to do a processing portion of it too. What would you say was the more challenging part? Was it leading people in the evening, or were you lucky enough to have a group where they could, for the most part, lead themselves with you giving some pointers? Or was it the process? I would imagine it was the processing part, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. What do you think?
No, it was the processing part because at least with this group, like I said, everyone was pretty aligned gear-wise, where we all had the ZWO mount and ASI Air. So that was pretty easy actually. But then the processing part, it was a little bit more varied where you had, serial user, PixInsight user, DSS user, all in the same workshop.
That's tricky.
So basically like I would try to show like, here's stacking in serial, here's stacking in DSS. But then that creates like downtime for people that aren't using that software. Yeah. So that's always complicated. And so with one of my past workshops, I was like, I'm only going to teach serial.
Yeah.
And I don't know, this time I didn't do that. I was like, I'm just going to like make it more loose and like people can do whatever they want. I see upsides and downsides to both approaches. That's the really hard thing with deep sky is that like not everyone uses the same thing. And it's so then it becomes difficult to teach.
Yeah. Which I guess is like part of what makes it great, but also definitely can make it tricky, especially when you're on like a time constrained type of situation. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And then I also threw in like trying to show like Milky Way and like panos with PT GUI. And I was just like, I don't know. I feel like I probably went like in too many directions with the instruction this time around. So, but if I get a lot of like repeats for the next one, I can get their feedback about like what I did this time and try to improve it. And so that's nice.
I like it. I asked some of the listeners if they wanted to submit questions for you, because that was one of the number one comments I got last time you came on the show. Oh man, you should have let us know. I wanted to ask him something.
Sure.
Would you mind going over a few of these?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, cool. So Chris asks, what would your ideal astrophotography rig look like if budget and practicality weren't major limitations? So like your dream rig, if you will, and you don't got to get like super in depth, but like if you could build anything anywhere, what do you think it would be?
It's funny. So I used to have that. Like I used to be like, oh, when I'm, have saved enough money, my dream rig is going to be this, the Tech 140 or a Takahashi 130, some kind of big refractor that's like the coveted kind of refractor, or an FSQ 106, something, one of those like classic refractors that everyone's like, the quality of that is impeccable. Everyone knows that's like a really good telescope.
Yeah.
I've sort of gone away from that because I just feel like since I've had that dream, software has changed so much that like I don't personally think those like really, really high end telescopes are as worth it anymore. Unless you're just like a stickler about like knowing you have the best data you could possibly have. Like I don't know. It's just like I just don't think it's as worth it anymore.
I'm in total agreement.
And so and I just get sent so many telescopes to review. A lot of times I can buy them after, the review, that kind of thing. So that really changes calculus too. Okay. But to answer the question a little bit better, like, it's always changing for me basically, because I like learning. So I think that the dream rig for me is always going to be one where I'm learning something new. Some kind of new technique. So I was really excited with when the mini cam came out because it had these new kinds of filters.
Yep.
So that like could be part of my dream rig, but just like anything where it's like, this is exciting and new is my favorite kind of thing.
I love that.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. All right, how about this? Tim asks, what advice would you give for astrophotographers that are working under heavily light polluted skies, a la Bortle 7 and up?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious is if you have a car, drive to Bortle 4. It just makes such a difference. Like when I lived in Delaware, I had to drive an hour to get to Bortle 4. When I lived in Boston, I had to drive 2 hours one way, so 4 hours round trip to get to Bortle 4. But there is something just so once you get to Bortle 4, it really is so dramatic. It has a difference with astrophotography where you can get one night of data and get a good image. Well, Bortle 7, 8, 9, it's like, oh, one night of data is still looking pretty noisy after that background sky removal kind of thing. So then it just becomes like, oh, well, then everything's a multi-night project. And then you're waiting for the next clear night. And then maybe this object is like no longer available that season. And I think that can become sort of demoralizing over time of it
can.
Yeah, running out of time on projects, having to think, okay, I'm going to pick this back up next year. Kind of thing. So I think, my first thought is always like, if you have a car, drive somewhere darker. If you don't know of a place near you, the astronomy clubs often, at least in the Northeast, either have sites or have groups that go out to like certain places often, and like even like organize that over email, like saying like, we're going to all go out on the new moon to this place kind of thing.
I love that. Our club does the same thing.
But then the other thing, of course, is narrowband is the big equalizer with light polluted skies. And so what I would do in Boston is I had like this athletic field behind my apartment. And so I would set up there any clear night where it was like a work night, and just shoot narrowband. Whatever the moon phase, didn't matter. I would just always be shooting HA on some object,
Yeah.
just gathering HA whenever it was clear from the city, and then just get the rest, when you go out to the dark sky.
It's gotten so much better too in recent years. Everybody seems to be making dual narrowband filters, and there's no lack of selection out there for what you want. It's available, right?
For sure. Mm-hmm.
But I totally agree with you on there's no substitute for dark skies. That was one of the first things that I heard when I got into this hobby, and I didn't understand it at the time. I didn't truly understand. I know what they were saying intrinsically, but I didn't really understand it. And I'll say this too, like even having access to Bortle 1 Sky's data now with a remote rig, I would still prefer to go to a Bortle 4 Sky and sit under it and look at the Milky Way all night,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I think, when you were saying, like didn't understand it, I didn't really understand it either when I was getting started, and I didn't really heed it, right? Like I was just like, when I was early on, I was just sort of like, I was in a city, it was like Bortle 7 or 8, I think it was Bortle 8. And for the first year, I didn't go to any dark skies. I was just, for deep sky, I was just a backyard imager. And I was just like, and I think that that's fine when you're starting out. Like, make it more convenient for yourself. And if your data is like noisy, just try not to like compare yourself to others.
Yeah.
Like because when you are early on in the hobby, you just need to like put in the hours of practice. So if it's going to be more convenient to do that from the city, just do it. Like, yeah.
So you can learn all the different skills that you need. Well said. This is a good one. Mark asked this question, and this is a topic that's come up a lot, and I've actually kind of changed gears on the way that I used to be on this, but what are your thoughts on gatekeeping within the astrophotography community? This could include gatekeeping around expensive equipment, smart telescopes, techniques, etc. How do you feel about it? Do you feel like it's changing? For me, I can just tell you anecdotally, I used to be very anti-smart scope, and I've actually changed my opinion on that. I think that they're a great entry point for people. And I think for myself, I was doing a lot of gatekeeping on my show by telling people don't get smart scopes because you don't learn about X, Y, and Z, when I wasn't really thinking about the fact that maybe not everybody can afford a $4,000 setup the first time that they're getting started, and maybe all they can do is get a $400 C-Star, and that's okay. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do. So specifically on what you just said about like the smart scope as a beginner choice, I think one of the difficult things when I'm advising a beginner and they're asking, should I get this or should I get that, is I don't know their personality and like what they're really going to enjoy about astrophotography. Because I think I am fairly well-rounded in that I like tinkering. I like the art part of it. I like dark skies. I like the experience. So there's a lot of different things I like. Some people are really into just like one part of this hobby. Like they're a tinkerer. And it's like, if you're a tinkerer, I don't think the smart scope is for you, because there's not much to tinker with. You just like set it up and it does its thing and it gets you the data. And then like, it's more for like people that like just want to like have something really easy in terms of the acquisition. And then you can get more advanced in the processing and you can get really into like taking that data and making it sing, that kind of thing. But like, so the way I feel about it is that like, the reason gatekeeping happens is because people aren't being aware that their preferences in astrophotography might not be someone else's preferences. Like they think like, oh, this is how everyone's going to think about it, that you got to do it this way. This is what I enjoy about it. So I go to enforce what I enjoy about it to another person. And so I think that's really what happens, is just people are lacking a little bit of self-awareness there, where they're just thinking like, this is what's so cool about it. How do you not see that?
Yeah.
and so if they don't think the smart scope approach is cool, they're going to start really ragging on smart scopes. But like for some people, they're just the bee's knees. They're the best thing that's ever happened. Even people who have had full like deep sky rigs in the past and have given up on that have told me, like they bought the Smart Scope now and they love it. It's just because they don't want all that complexity, that kind of thing.
Yeah, everybody is different. And I think what you said really hit home for me. What I think is great about it, somebody else might not care at all about that aspect. Very well said. Let me see here. Here's a good one from Ken. He says, you previously installed a remote imaging rig at SFRO. How did that experience ultimately work out for you? What were your thoughts and feelings on it? I know we touched a little bit on this earlier, but and you don't have to go specifically into SFRO, but your feelings overall on, I guess, your personal experience with remote imaging.
So that is a video coming out in a month. But I can say some things because I'm doing it basically a 2-year follow-up on my experience at Starfront. So the things that I'll say are that I'm still doing it. I'm still a paying customer. It's not as big a part of my Astro life as other people. I think I basically just sort of set it up and have it collect data on some big long-term projects that I'm interested in. And I like it for that. It can collect way more hours on those projects than I can at home.
Yes.
And so I really appreciate it. And Starfront was great in pushing down the price. And now so many other observatories are opening up with that lower price point. So many people are getting into remote imaging. So I really applaud them for that. I will say that even though, the price point for the peer rental is lower, one thing to keep in mind is that you may find, even if you tested your rig a fair amount at home, that things don't go as right as you want when it gets to the remote setting. And it might, I've thought about this and I was like, oh, did the things really break or are they just not working correctly? And I've replaced 4 things on my rig. Only really one of them broke. The other 3, it was just that they weren't working as optimally as I wanted. I was having connection issues or things that just, it wasn't as smooth. I couldn't just do what you're talking about of just set up the scheduler and not think about it for a week or something.
Yeah.
I knew that I might have a connection issue this night and have to go in there and turn off the USB and turn it back on or something like that. So I did replace things. And I guess that my only point about that is just that just think about that it might add to your cost that you may find to make this actually smooth, you might actually be swapping some gear in your rig.
Well said. I, up until about 3 weeks before I left to go to Utah, it hadn't even occurred to me to have a remote KVM, which is something that I've since learned is very important to have on a remote rig. It basically lets you get into BIOS of the computer remotely. It's just like a HDMI out basically on the back of the computer and little things like that. Battery backup. That's something that never occurred to me. They got generators at remote observatories, but there's a second for them to click on and that's all it takes for your rig to turn off. Do you have right access braking? There's all these questions that start to come to mind that might not occur to you when you're testing it at home. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I'd also say the more complex you make your rig, because there's lots of little wish list items you might want, but the more complex you make it, the more the things can go wrong. And something that's critical for me is a rotator, but rotators are really difficult when you can't see because that rotation angle doesn't mean anything, right? You don't know what that rotation angle actually means. So
thank you, God.
Things can happen where it's basically even if you sort of studied this is what the rotation angle means at home, it can lose that somehow, and those numbers are different. I don't know. So,
oh goodness, don't get me started, Nico. The rotator was by far the trickiest thing, and still is. I only will rotate certain amounts because I'm terrified of what could go wrong if I go further than that. So maybe a mosaic is the answer there. Personal question that I have for you, and this is just an opinion on astrophotography. This is a debate that I've had a little bit internally and with some friends. Do you think, as somebody who shoots mono and one-shot color a good deal, I think it's you'd say it's safe to say that you shoot both a fair deal, right?
Yep.
Do you think there's something to be said for one-shot color being more efficient in its own, I guess you would say, human experience way than mono can be? And let me explain that a little bit. I've got a friend, Parrish, who I've mentioned many times already, who has projects where he'll have a goal in mind of getting, 60 hours on a project, for example, and he will hit a time of the season where he can no longer shoot that target because it's not more than 15 degrees up or whatever it is. And he says, okay, I'm going to finish this target next year. And it seems to happen a good deal. And I often hear people say that mono is much more efficient. And yet I find in practice that like my one-shot color rig out in Utah seems to be like just churning through projects so far, data. And yet I know like intrinsically that the mono is more efficient because it's not having to deal with a bare pattern and RGB and all this. We don't need to get into the details of it all, but do you kind of get what I'm saying with that? How like, while technically mono is more efficient, it seems to me like in practice that one-shot color can also be more efficient, kind of depending on what your goals are. Do you have any thoughts on that at all? I've wanted to ask you this for so long.
Yeah, I haven't done like personally any kind of like rigorous comparisons on the efficiency question. So I might sort of dodge that question, but I feel like I am again someone who really enjoys both. I think that might be sort of rare. I feel like a lot of people sort of settle into one and they find that like that style of imaging really works better for them, even if it's remote. I don't know. Like, because it's just like, because I just meet a lot of imagers who are maybe like, yeah, I tried mono and I don't like it, or I know that I won't like it kind of thing. Like, because there's more to it than just like the capture. It's like you have to think about like in processing, you're dealing with all these different filters and there's just a lot more data and like, flats for every filter and all this stuff that, and if you like have a sensor where it like wants like, flat darks, and it's like then you're doing like flats and flat darks for every filter and all these different like little considerations. So it's just a lot more to like keep in mind, I think. So I think that style wise, there's a simplicity to OSC processing that is really nice. On the other hand, some people they'll start with that dual narrowband in OSC, which is just like the most affordable, straightforward way to get into narrowband. And then when they go to narrowband with mono, they do see what they were missing, especially with the O3 channel. Where something about having the O3 in mono, you can start going after some of those dimmer O3 objects, and it's pretty amazing how much more efficient it is there.
Well said.
So I think there's definitely use cases for both, but for me, it's like it just feels like a very different like style kind of thing.
Yeah, it's personal preference almost.
Personal preference.
Yeah. I think that's it, and I think for me, it's just that it's probably just my personal preference, and I like to reinforce my own ideology, right? And what I tell myself to make myself feel better. But at some point, I'm sure that I will no doubt get into mono.
I've been like been into refractors forever. And so I'm finally in the past like year trying to get into reflectors, and it's still a challenge for me to like feel that they're right for me, because there's so much like fiddling up front at the beginning of the night to like make sure that I'm getting really good data, and like as good data as I could possibly get. But I do see things that I feel like people don't really talk about with reflectors. Like I'm seeing for the first time that like the blue doing reflector, mono, and a blue filter. I'm seeing stuff in blue, like broadband blue, that I've never seen before.
Really?
Like more variation, just better signals, smoother gradients, just stuff that like, I'm like, oh, this is a combination of gear I've never used, and I'm seeing cool things here. I think for me, that's sort of why I said earlier with my dream rig, it's just going to always be something new, because I just love that when I'm like, I've been doing astrophotography a long time, but to see something new is always exciting from gear.
Yeah. I couldn't say that better. Do you have any projects that you're working on? Anything upcoming in the coming seasons that you're excited about or that you want to talk about?
Good question.
You always got so much going on, man. You gotta pick which, right?
Yeah. Like I'm always wary to talk about my Cepheus book because I have no idea when it's going to be done. It feels like every time I try to tackle it again, it just feels like it's an even bigger project. But yeah, I want to do books. And so that's like a long-term thing that it almost feels not like part of the business. It feels just like my personal goal kind of project is to like make these images and eventually make it into a book. The other thing that's going on is I just got this commission to do really large prints in a science classroom. And so I'm really excited about that because that's something I've always wanted to get into. And it just sort of like fell into my lap.
Very cool.
Is like the more art side, but like people that want large prints. Cause I just think that's such a cool part of astrophotography that we can do mosaics and then print things out really large. So.
Huge. Now, how large are we talking? Do you mind if I ask?
So they actually wanted to do one with my 24 panel Cygnus mosaic, which is my biggest work. And so they're going to print that out 15 feet wide by 6 feet high.
Wow. 15 feet wide. That's incredible.
Yeah. I'm pretty amazed they wanted something that big. Yeah.
What will the DPI, will it look good at that scale? I mean, a 24 panel mosaic, I guess we'll find out, right?
Yeah, we'll find out. I get, it's like I'm working, like there's a third party design firm that's also in the loop here. And so I sent them a sample of like what it would be. And I think they printed that out and said that it was acceptable because like it all seems to be moving forward. So,
wow, that's incredible. Now, would you consider selling these privately as well? Doing like a large, I know it's something that like all astrophotographers think of when they first get into the hobby, like, oh, I should sell these prints, and all your friends and family come up, you need to sell your prints, da 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 da. But like, if you could sell like a legitimate large format print of your favorite constellation, it seems to me like your audience would probably be interested in that, right?
Yeah, it's a good question. I struggle with that question. I don't think that I want to get into the general print sale thing.
Yeah.
Some people are successful at it. I don't know. What I do currently is I do signed prints. I do like printing, so I do signed prints for an upper level of my Patreon, and then if someone reaches out to me and wants to work on a print project using one of my images, I'm going to be game.
Yeah.
But that's sort of how I approach it. I don't think I'm going to go into just sort of like making a website with print sales kind of thing.
That's fair. I like that approach. I think it gives you a lot more control over how you approach each project. And ultimately, it's not a situation where you're like, I need to get out 3 new prints for the website by next season, which kind of, I've always been super hesitant with photography in general about what kind of work that I do with it. Cause I like I've had many people approach me over the years, as I'm sure you have too. Would you do my party? Would you do my, wedding? Would you do this? And I did one, and that was the last one I ever did. Cause I was like, man, I could see how this could really suck the fun out of this. Cause it's different, it's a different responsibility. It's different when you have someone else's special interest in your hands that you're responsible for. And I think I can understand your concern with going that route, I guess is what I'm getting at. So,
yeah, I think that, it would be, I feel like I have enough time right now for like YouTube, the workshops, and then like a little bit of time to work on the book project.
Yeah.
But like that's still taking years and years and years. And I just know that if I started getting into like full-time print sales where they're available all the time, it would be just too much time to try to manage
we
that.
never have enough of that, do we? Have you found it getting harder and harder to manage your schedule? Because you're so busy these days. I mean, I'm frankly blown away that you're able to put out the level of content that you do. Thank you for doing it, by the way. But like for me, I've noticed I've had to step back a little bit this year and kind of told everyone, like, don't expect an hour episode every single week, which I still try to do. But there are times when I'll go 2 or 3 weeks before I put out an episode because like life is busy and, you know, it's hard and you only got so many hours in the day. Are you managing that well?
Yeah, I mean, I added, so about a year ago, or maybe even less than a year ago, I added, for every tier on Patreon, I do a Patreon bonus video every month. So that definitely, it felt for me for some reason, like at the moment that I had to do that like it was like the next step, but it's definitely added some level of sort of stress. Cause like right now, you know, we have 5 days left in July and I owe Squarespace a video and I have to do a Patreon bonus video. And it's like, it's just getting more of like a crunch thing, I think.
Yeah.
And there's been times in the past where it's like, I used to do this segment called 5-Minute Fridays where I tried to put out like a video every Friday and eventually gave up on it because it was like too much. But I feel like once you start offering a perk on Patreon, it's hard to be like, I'm taking this away.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely like conscious of like, how many more things can I add to the business kind of thing?
I think that's wise. I think that is very wise. Speaking of that, I think we're coming up on nearly a 2-hour mark, and I want to be respectful of your time, but I want to say, man, I'm obviously a huge fan of yours. I just want to say thank you so much for all the awesome work that you have done for the community for so many years now. And thank you for kind of staying in touch with your roots, so to speak, and still being willing to come on a show like the Astrocast and talk for a little while. It means a lot to me, man. So thank you for that, Nico.
It's my pleasure, Roo. Anytime.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. You guys, if you haven't somehow seen Nebula photos on YouTube, obviously the link will be in the description. I would highly encourage you to check out Nico's Astromen as well. It has incredible work on there. And I think most of the things that you do, you end up linking to in your show notes or talking about them in your show in one way or another. And then obviously you have your Patreon as well. Is it just patreon.com/Nebula photos?
That's right. Yep.
All right, great. So please check that out as well. I'll have links to all of Nico's work, and I will definitely put up images of the photos that we talked about as well. So that'll be about it, man. So thanks so much, Nico. I hope to talk to you very soon. One quick thing before you go, since we didn't do a video episode last time, can you show me that Cepheus tattoo real quick before we bounce?
Oh, yeah, sure. So, is the lighting blown out?
I got it.
There we go.
Yeah. I love it.
They are like correctly placed. So there's Cepheus and then there's Cygnus there.
God, I love that.
And
I love that.
Thought about, maybe adding Cassiopeia somewhere eventually, but haven't gotten to that.
That's my next tattoo, without a doubt. It's going to be Cygnus, man.
It's nice for when you're like, you're telling someone like, okay, look up in the sky, and you can even point it out and say like, yeah, what I'm shooting is right there, kind of.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much, Nico. I'll talk to you soon. Okay, Ben?
Thanks.
Thanks, fun. Bye.
Wednesday evening, the feed goes live. ROO'S voice cuts through the dark like a 135. From backyard scopes to mountain peaks, we're all tuned in, no time to sleep. Red dot finders, coma correctors gain. He breaks it down like it's simple, never pain. Comets rising, planets in the frame.